lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Six Nations of the Grand River, and the traditional territory of the Attawandarock. We remind ourselves that the County of Brant is situated on lands that are full of rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. We recognize the significance of their contributions to the past, present, and future of this land. As a county, we have the shared responsibility for the stewardship of the land on which we live and work, and a commitment to truth and reconciliation calls to actions. We commit to continue learning, reflecting on our past, and working in allyship.
Thank you. Takes us to number 3 on our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have anything they want to add to the agenda? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One item under new business.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Miller.
Same as Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. Anything else? There's no addendums to the agenda. Oh, there was one. Okay. I haven't looked down often enough. Councillor Chambers. Thank you. Noting that there is an addendum. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest. If you have one, let me know. Councillor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just note under the Planning and Development, Policy Development Committee 9.2 Recommendation 5, Communities in Bloom.
Thank you. Any others? Seeing none, that takes us to number 5 on the agenda, which is 5.1, which is going to be a representative from Mount Pleasant Fire Department. If you want to come to the podium, please, and give us your full name and your address, and you have 10 minutes to present.
My name is Steve Jealous. My home address, 291 Bateman Line.
Thank you.
Mount Pleasant. So good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Jealous. I'm a firefighter with the County of Brant Fire Department. I'm also the president of the Mount Pleasant Firefighters Association. So to be eligible for a special occupancy permit for the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, the Mount Pleasant Firefighters Association Wing Night must be declared a municipal significant event. So we're looking for approval for that. The event happens on September 7th at the Mount Pleasant Community Hall. And we have approximately 300 guests spread over 2 servings, and tickets are $30. And the proceeds from this event supports local initiatives. 2 years ago, we were fortunate to donate $10,000 to the Mount Pleasant Public Schools, so we use these funds to support our community.
Perfect. Any questions? I've been to the event. It's a big deal. It's one of the biggest deals in Mount Pleasant. It's well attended, and it's certainly worth supporting. Councillor Garneau?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Coleman. The delegation from the Mount Pleasant Firefighters Association be received as information. And whereas in order to be eligible for a special occasion permit from the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, Mount Pleasant Firefighters Association Wing Night must be declared a municipally significant event. Therefore, that the Mount Pleasant Firefighters Association Wing Night scheduled for September 7th, 2024 at the Mount Pleasant Community Hall be declared a municipally significant event for the purposes of obtaining a special occasion permit.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed and carried? Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Which takes us to the adoption of the minutes from previous meeting. Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Coleman that the County of Brant Council minutes of January 9th, January 30th, February 13th, and special council minutes of January 17th, 31st, and February 1st, 2024 be approved.
Thank you. Does anyone want any of the minutes separated? No? We're going to vote on them all at once, 5 of them. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any business arising from any of the sets of minutes? Seeing none, we'll go on to 8.1, which is consent items to be approved. Councillor Bell, you have those.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McAlpine that the bylaws amending the appointed members of the Paris Business Improvement Area Executive Board and approving the 2024 Paris BIA budget be forwarded to Council for consideration.
Any questions to Councillor Bell or to the report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.2 on the agenda. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Chambers, that the items 8.21 to 8.211 be received as information.
Does anyone want any of the 11 separated? Councillor Oakley and Councillor Miller. Councillor Oakley, you're first.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, 8.2.2.
8.2.2 and Councillor Miller.
8.2.7.
Any others that we want separated? Okay. If we aren't separating anymore, let's vote on 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, and 11. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we'll go back to 2, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we mirror the letter sent by the City of Brantford supporting their request, as we've done so with their previous request to expand public transit in the area.
Seeking a seconder for Councillor Oakley. Councillor Pierce? Any discussion to what we're voting on? It's the rail, cooperation with the city. Any other questions? All those in favor? Thank you. And we'll go now to 7, please. 8.2.7. Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the Long Point Conservation Authority inventory of programs and services. As you know, they have to divide them up into Category 1, Category 2, Category 3, which they've done quite nicely. And I'm on page 81 of our package. And I was just going through it, and they've listed the Bacchus Conservation Educational and Interactive Program Services at Category 3. And I understand that. That's not a requirement of the provincial government, so that can't go on the municipal levy. But just above it is the Bacchus Education Center office, and that's a Category 1. So what I'm trying to understand is why the Bacchus Conservation Education Program is a Category 3, but the building itself is in a Category 1. So I would look to the chair of LPCR if he can answer that tonight for us, or maybe find out for sure. And I ask that obviously in light of what the GRCA is going through with Apps Mill. So I'm hoping if Robert could shed some light on that.
Councillor Chambers, you have an answer for that?
Just, and I don't want to mislead or misstate, but I believe it revolves around the fact that the Educational Center acts as a administration for the park, as well as the educational programming that occurs there. So it's kind of in an administrative asset type category rather than a program that is offered as a Category 3.
So it acts as more than just that. You okay with that explanation?
Yeah, no, if I had to guess ahead of time, I would have guessed that, but I appreciate the answer.
Councillor Chambers?
And I admit I'm just guessing at it too, but at least we guess the same thing. The gives me a chance to say the annual general meeting of Long Point is this Friday, and if Councillor Miller can attend, I would invite him to attend, and perhaps the general manager can do a better explanation. But I think my guess is correct.
Councillor Miller?
And I won't be attending because I'll be working, but I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, 2 guesses and you're both still smiling, so that's great. That's great. Which takes us, we have to vote on those 2. We'll vote on the 2 we didn't vote on before. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Takes us to number 9 on the agenda, which is committee reports. 9.1 paramedics. Councillor Miller, you have that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's moved by myself, second by Councilor Pierce, that the Paramedic Services Committee report of February 6, 2024 be approved. And I'd like to speak to it too as well.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to speak to it first?
If you don't mind, yes, thank you. If you look at the report itself, you won't see a lot of action items, but we did have a vigorous debate based on the statistical analysis that the paramedic chief has provided. They've got some new software, new ways of measuring things. And I had brought this up earlier in a previous meeting around this table, but an ambulance costs approximately $150 per hour, and that includes 2 paramedics and the cost of the ambulance itself. And it's stated, that's stated in the minutes if you read it over. So I want people around this table to be aware that it's expensive to run an ambulance. And when that ambulance is sitting at the emergency room, it's a very, very frustrating waste of money because we've seen in excess of 2,000 hours in a month with ambulances sitting there at the emergency room. So 2,000 times 150, you're going to get into some pretty serious money pretty quick. I mean, that's $300,000, and there's some months that they've exceeded 2,000 hours. So it's not an issue that is being ignored. It's being worked on. But it would be nice if we seen progress. But I think it's just something that we need to be cognizant of.
Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Miller. It relates to that question. If we got ambulances sitting around for 2,000 hours, are we failing to do something else in that period of time? And how do we put a measure on that?
Well, I will say that the paramedic services is doing their job. I mean, they're still responding to calls. Where it becomes an issue is when we get to a code 0, where there's no ambulances. Then that's when we're relying on other jurisdictions to send in their ambulances. That's come down over the last year, which is good to see, because they've gotten a little bit, I will say, a little bit better at offload delays at the hospital. Having said that, I think where the biggest impact is not that things aren't being done. It's that we've had to add another ambulance and another ambulance. I think we've been having a lot of ambulances in the last few years, and a big reason is because they are sitting there. So the long and short is things are still getting done, but we just have to have more staff and more ambulances to get them done.
Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And if I could just add to what Councillor Miller was saying there, it was also discussed that when we get into these situations where we've got ambulances waiting at the hospital, the supervisors are now being dispatched to calls to understand what they can do in their vehicles as well. So it's, to Councilor Miller's point, they're all doing whatever they can in order to serve the public, but it's a huge issue, as he says. So they are working it for sure.
Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it talks to a bigger problem, which is how we deal with the ER, or ED, as it might be known here. And that, I think, is something that we should be hearing more of, I think, in this council. I can't remember the last time we had a conversation about that, and more generally about the hospital. So I would request that we ask the hospital to come and talk to us about these things.
Do you want to make a motion to have?
I will make that motion.
Thank you. I'm
the
seeking.
hospital board come and talk to us about the ED and also about the bigger divide.
Perfect. Councillor Oakley is your seconder. Any other comments? All those in favor? Yeah, that's great. I think that's a good idea. And Councillor Pierce and I also know what it's doing to the OPP too. The police are in the same situation. So it's a lot of very expensive people sitting around feeling like they could be doing other things. So, no, we have to vote to approve the paramedics report. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 9.2, which is Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Oakley, that the Policy Development Committee meeting report of February 6, 2024 be approved, noting there's 5 items.
There's 5 items. Does anyone want anything separated? Oh, Councillor Garneau has a conflict. That's great on 5. Anything else? All those in favor? Councillor Garneau? You're okay there?
We're voting on 1 through 4?
1 through 4.
Oh, then, yes.
Yes, thank you. And now we'll vote on the other one, and you can turn your back there. All those in favor? Opposed? You can come back now. Nine point three, Ad hoc Committee, Councillor Oakley.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Garneau that the Grants Ad hoc Committee report of February 13th, 2024 be approved.
Questions to the grant process? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 9.4, Planning and Development Committee, February 13th, Councillor McAlpine.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Garneau that the Planning and Development Committee report of February 13th, 2024 be approved.
Questions for Councillor McAlpine on his report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Takes us to 9.5, Administration and Operations Committee report. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bell that the Administration and Operations Committee report of February 20th, 2024 be approved, noting that there are 13 recommendations.
Are there any to be separated of the 13? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Nine point six, Committee of the Whole report of January the 11th and February the 1st and 22nd. Councillor Oakley.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Kyle that the Committee of the Whole report of January 11th, February 1st, and February 2020 or February 22nd of 2024 be approved, noting correction to recommendation 8 to amend the amount to be funded by debentures to $22,825,375.
Any to be separated? Councillor Miller?
Well, I have a question on the whole motion itself. What are we approving with this motion? Is this the approval of the budget?
This is everything until you separate it, Councillor Miller.
Pardon me?
It's everything until you separate something to talk about it separately. It's the budget included in this, yeah.
Well, maybe we can separate February 22nd.
Okay. Councillor Chambers?
Yes, along the same lines as Councilman, this is kind of an unusual recommendation in that there's a lot of recommendations in there. And then the final recommendation number 8 is contingent upon whether the 3s and 4s are passed. So I would like them separated and voted on separately for the simple reason that I'm in favor of some, but not others. It's not my intention to go through the individual recommendations and pick and choose, but the recommendation itself, if I don't agree with it, I'm going to vote against it. And I would like them all separated.
Okay. So knowing that we're going to do it that way, when we get to number 7, if something changes on something above 7, then we'll take a bit of a break for 7 and 8 to happen. Do you want- Right. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to vote on number 9.6.1 as it stands. Yeah, any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 2. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. Carried. Number 3. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, number 1. Number 3 had the decision packages, so we'll go to number 4. number 4. Any questions or concerns? All right, Councillor Chambers?
This is the recommendation with regard to decision packages.
Number 4 is yes.
Okay, and I'm in sync. And I'm not going to rehash all the conversations that occurred at the committee of the whole meeting, but members of the council know that I'm very much opposed to some of them and moderately opposed to most of them and are going to vote against all of them.
You're going to vote against all of them?
In other words, I'm going to vote against number 4.
All right. Any other discussion on number 4? See none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 5. Any questions to number 5? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 6. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 7. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 8. Councillor Miller?
A question on this one. I find it opaque that this is the budget amount, but we don't have a percentage. I thought that should be, if somebody's watching tonight, they would have no idea. And I had no idea until I watched the previous committee of the whole meeting. So what is the percentage overall for the budget from last year? And then what is the percentage on the average household?
Heather Boyd.
The increase on the median home is 8.7%, and maybe Heather Mifflin has the total for the total levy increase.
What's the percentage of the total levy increase?
Through Mr. Mayor, it's 13% on the levy increase, 8.7 on the median home.
Okay, I'll have a comment later. Thank you.
Any other conversation on number 8? Councillor Chambers?
Yeah, and again, I'm not going to go into my comments of the committee of the whole. Everybody knows that I am not supporting the budget. Just briefly, the percentage increase of 8.7% is in my opinion, not as good as what we could do in terms of a break for the taxpayers of the county. 8.7% is the highest tax increase, I think, in the new amalgamated Brant County's history. It is higher than our neighbors. It's higher than Hamilton. It's higher than the County of Haldimand. It's higher than the County of Norfolk. It's higher than the County of Oxford. It's higher than all the constituent municipalities in the County of Oxford. It's higher than the region of Waterloo. And it's higher than every constituent municipality in the region of Waterloo. There's no reason why we cannot revisit the budget and try to resolve some of the items in the budget. We need to pay attention to what we need rather than what we want. The poster child for a want rather than a need is hiring someone to count the votes in a recorded voting technology. It's just something that I cannot accept and I cannot justify. I don't want to appear as the parsimonious old uncle on council because I want to be part of the new young progressive council that you described at the last meeting. But if people want to brand me as the old uncle that is too frugal to accept this budget, go ahead and do it, because I will not accept an 8.7 tax increase without trying a little bit harder to bring it down to a more respectable number.
Now, are they comments, Councillor Chambers, or are you trying to find an amendment there, or what are you looking to do?
I will move that recommendation number 8 be tabled for further consideration at committee of the whole for budget.
Seeking a seconder. Councillor Coleman? Comments, concerns? Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't agree with this motion. I think we've actually pared down this budget as far as we can. I think we've missed out things that are relevant and important to our community. Item 7 refers to the intimate partner violence and gender-based violence, which we as a council supported when we had 6 delegations here. We made a pretty much a commitment that we were going to fund some of their work, and we haven't. The city have been able to manage that. We haven't. I feel quite embarrassed by it. But I think at a higher level, we should stop looking at one-year budgets. We have to look at the trends. I think Lucas, Councillor Oakley, has data that says, despite this, we are still the lowest property tax municipality in our area. And I think we need to look at things in the whole, and we need to recognize that we are growing, that we are coming from a place that we are not prepared for that growth yet. We have to add staff, we have to add facilities, we have to add infrastructure, and now we have to pay the price that we've been pushing away for the last few years. So I will not support the tabling of this budget.
Any other comments? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just say that it's interesting. I understand the demand that we have at the county for tax dollars, and I think we're pretty good at what we do with them and how far we stretch them. It's interesting because I work, I sit on a board for a nonprofit, and when you sit there, you never have money for anything, and you get so creative because you don't have that option of getting more money. You just don't. You do what you got to do to get by, and it's a totally different mindset. I understand we're not a business. We do have to be business-like. So a lot of talk about the demand for dollars. I concur with Councillor Bell on that. We haven't addressed the violence. I was surprised the hospital didn't even make it into the cut. But at the same time, while I understand the demand for dollars, I think we have to, and it wasn't mentioned a whole lot, but we have to keep in mind of the people that are paying those dollars, and they have the same issues that we have. They're facing inflation. They have higher insurance costs. They have higher food costs. I think it is getting unsustainable for a lot of seniors. I think we're going to see many seniors in our community lose their houses. They just have to give them up because they won't be able to afford them. But we don't hear that around the table. We only hear, we need more bylaw staff. We need this. We need that. And I understand that, but I think we have to be more cognizant in our calculus of the budget of where those dollars are coming from. And I concur with Councillor Oakley over there that we are a little bit lower than the surrounding municipalities. So I would fully understand that we can, be above the rate of inflation by a bit and do that for a few years. But when we're looking at more than double the rate of inflation in 1 year, that's a hard hit to take. And every other day you read something in the paper about how tough it is out there, and it's very tough. What's in today's headlines? Well, they're talking about food bank usage went up 18% 2023. They predict it'll go up by 30% 2024. These are real numbers, real people. We talk a lot about affordable housing. I'm starting to think now that maybe high property taxes are maybe contributing to the lack of affordable housing because it's getting very difficult for everyone. So I did watch the meeting you had last week. I was a little frustrated when staff did come forward. They had some good suggestions. Some of them were rejected. If staff is coming forward saying you can do this to help lower it and you don't do it, then, well, you don't do it, that's a decision, but I think there's a few things we can tweak to get that down. So I won't support the budget. I will support the tabling motion because I firmly believe we need to get it down for our residents.
Any other comments? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will support the tabling motion. I think Councilor Miller touched on it, and I was quite upset that we had to pull the hospital funding out of it. And I can explain it to the public. That's 1% on the taxes, and so we would have been coming back with a 9.7. But that is something we got to do somewhere down the line. Is we got to start putting away to the hospital. And I thought staff had done a good way of doing it by the 1% surcharge on this to make it work. But I agree. I think there were some cuts can still be made to make this work a little better for the residents. I don't get 8.7% increase in my wages or my income. It doesn't work. So I will support the tabling motion.
Councillor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to support the tabling, although I feel that the tax rate is higher than it needs to be at this stage. The reason is we've been through an intensive process already, and like my colleagues to my left, I do think that we should have taken staff's professional judgment with more of the recommendations that were brought before us last week. But seeing that we have debated those, and I think there's a point in the process where we need to move forward with a degree of certainty for ourselves and our residents that I think it's time to go ahead. I, like Councillor Coleman, have costs going up and income not. I feel this in ways that a lot of our residents do as well. But at the same time, I think we've reached the point where we have to move forward with what we have and perhaps put our ear to the ground for next year. And as we're making the decisions that we make on a one-off basis through the year, really reflect on the comments that have come up during budget and make sure that as we're asking for things to be included next year, that we take that pause and have that thought about whether it is a need or a want. And if it is something we're going to go forward, that we look at the scope of it. But at this point, I think for me, it's time to move forward because we have a lot of other business ahead of us that we're not going to be able to get to if we're revisiting budget. Thank you.
Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to sort of make a comment in regards to something Councillor Miller commented on, which is seniors and lower income people not being able to afford a tax rate, which I think is a fair concern. Unfortunately, my time got away from me and I didn't get the opportunity to bring a motion forward for our admin and ops meeting this month. But I have been having some conversations with our finance staff in regards to there is a provincial policy that allows for seniors, those on fixed incomes, lower income households to be able to apply for either a delay of paying those increased property taxes or waiving them entirely. And the motion that hopefully I'll bring forward in the coming month would have staff look into what exactly that provincial policy looks like, what we need to do at a local level, and being able to promote those for those who need that.
Councillor Chambers.
Just, and again, I'll speak twice being the mover of the motion. I just wanted to make comment on a comment that was made, and that's with regard to Brant County having the lowest tax rate in the area. And that's not by accident. And there's basically two reasons for that. The first reason is that previous councils have been very careful in their budgeting. They haven't given way to wants rather than needs in many cases. But we still have done wonderful things. We have fire halls, we have arenas, and we have police stations. We have all the things that people need. The other reason, and this is probably something that we need to think about, and that is previous councils were very they promoted industrial development very well. The new industrial park brought in a tremendous amount of assessment, and we continue with growth to have huge assessment increases, which if you stop and think about it, brings more money into the coffers. And if you stop and think about it a little further, if we're bringing more money into coffers because of the tremendous growth that we've had in the last few years, hasn't always been that way, we should have more money to spend on things that we need without raising the tax rate. It's sad to think, but we in the last couple of years have spent more at the Ontario Land Tribunal fighting assessment, costing us more through our legal bills than what our economic development department is using to attract industries. That's wrong. That's going to have an impact down the road. If we have tremendous assessment increase like we've had in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, our tax rate should be lowering in perspective, not going higher every year. We've got this backwards. We need to stop, as Councillor Miller said at the last council meeting, it's the council that is causing the increases in many cases. We have to say no in some cases. This, and I don't mean to harp about this, but if you ask anybody, pull any 10 people in off the street and ask them if they want to spend $50,000 to have votes counted, they're angry about that. And we need to think about things like that. That's just one example. We spent more time looking at decision packages to increase the tax levy than we did looking at things in order to decrease the tax increase. We've got that wrong. We need to table the budget. We need to go back and have a clear thought about what we want and moderate what we want with what we need. And we can do that. There's no reason to saddle the taxpayers with the highest tax levy in the area, perhaps in most of Ontario, and we don't have to do that. We have tremendous growth and tremendous assessment. Don't use that as an excuse, having the lowest tax rate, to have a high tax levy. And that's all I'm going to say. And actually, we're not even supposed to be debating a tabling motion, but we kind of let that get away from us. That's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor.
I would never, ever cut off a grumpy uncle. Oh, okay. Any other questions, Councillor Kyle?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Not really a question, but just a comment. I also won't be supporting tabling it for a lot of the reasons we've heard from some of the others. I do want to make a bit of a comment around the needs versus wants. Personally, I was really impressed with how lean the staff came back as far as paring down what they could have asked us for. My understanding from the presentations and from speaking to some of the staff, it was really the bare minimum of what they needed in order to ensure that we're able to maintain the level of service that our residents are looking for. I know when I'm walking around the countryside and I'm talking to residents, often their comment is they think they get really great value for the amount of tax that they pay compared to what they know their neighbors pay in other municipalities, and their questions and their concerns are more about those services that we don't have. They're looking to be able to get their kids into after school programs that we don't have spaces for. They're looking to get their kids into swimming lessons. We cut that help. They're looking for those services that what the staff had put in the report were asking for. So I think those actually are all needs. They're not wants. And I would just repeat again for anyone who maybe didn't hear my comments at last week's meeting, but the recording secretary is not simply a person to count votes. That was one of 2 positions that our clerk's department had requested to help with the over extension of what they're able to offer, and they desperately need some help in that department, and that person is going to provide that. Yes, maybe counting votes becomes part of that job description, but that's not the whole job description. So I think we need to be mindful, obviously, that yeah, an 8.7% tax increase is a lot, but we are not being extravagant in what we have included in this budget. And I agree, there's many things that we didn't include that we should have.
Any other comments? My only comment is I would be fine with the tax increase, but I think we dropped the ball on some very important organizations that we should have supported. I'm embarrassed because personally, before I was the mayor, I supported all of these things that we missed from the budget, and I'm very embarrassed that we didn't do that. And if we could go back and do it again, but we can't. We're exhausted. We're all very exhausted. Staff is exhausted. We've all had very long weeks lately. You've seen the list of minutes from special meetings in the last month. We had 5 or 6 of them just to get to where we are today. So I can't support tabling it, but I will tell you that I'm very embarrassed by things that we haven't included. And to Councillor Chambers' point, since we can't debate these things, and I didn't cut you off, I'm hoping you're not going to call me out of order. But I think if people knew that it was costing $300,000 for a lawyer to go defend something that we already have deemed that we can't win, and we did that over and over again, and the only reason we did all of that is because we've never been faced with this kind of growth before. So we have learned lessons, very expensive lessons, millions of dollars of lessons in the last council. We would never have given direction the way we gave direction had we known how much these bills were going to come to. And if we had all that legal money back, we wouldn't be sitting here in any kind of trouble. We would have a very low tax rate, and we would be able to support things like that we can't support, which is the piece that's so socially inept of us. It's so embarrassing because they're things that matter to all of us every day. They're intimate things, and they're things that we just have to, after this budget is passed, find a way to get the money to support these agencies. So with that being said, and thank you for not cutting me off, we're going to vote on tabling the budget, or that number on the line. All those in favor of tabling the budget? Thank you. All those opposed to tabling the budget? And it's passed. We just have to approve recommendation 8. Councillor Chambers?
And we'll do it the old-fashioned way. I'll ask for a recorded vote.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to ask all members who are in favor of recommendation number 8 to rise, please. Thank you. You may be seated. I would like to ask those council members opposed to please stand. You may sit. The motion is as follows: yes or 7, no is 3. The motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you for the discussion. I think it was all worthwhile. I think we have learned lessons, and we'll move on the next time. Which takes us to number 10, staff reports, 10.1. Mr. Walton, you're here just for information. We need some representatives from council.
Yes, to you, Mr. Mayor. We're requesting 5 volunteers to sit on a standing quarter revision, which would then meet for each quarter revision that's required under the Drainage Act. This would cover all quarter revisions except the ones where we have more than one municipality, and then we can only have 2 on them. Council will have to appoint them at the time, but we never know when those are going to happen. So I think this will save some administration in the future and also allow us to do some training for the people that are on it. Although our 3 that we had this afternoon, the quarter revision did a very good job, so thank them.
Great. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to ask for 5 volunteers. Councillor Chambers, you have a question?
No, I'm not volunteering, Mr. Mayor. I had the pleasure of sitting in on the quarter revision, and I thought it was very, very well done, very professional, and I did mention the chair of that, and so certainly the three that have been on the quarter revision that just happened should be on, and I'd be happy to nominate all three of them. And since this area of the county is represented, the other area perhaps can be represented as well. So perhaps two from the north and maybe one of the urban members could also sit.
Okay, Councillor Miller?
Just maybe a question to Rob, if I could, Mr. Mayor, and that's why go 5 members? Why not 3?
Mr. Walton?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Miller. What the act says is you're to appoint 3 or 5. And when we appoint 5, then you only have to have quorum show up. So as long as 3 of those members can come, we can have an active court revision without reappointing a different court. So this allows us in the long term to just keep running business. If we only appointed 3, we could run into times where we couldn't actually have a quorum, which would be a big problem.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate the answer. What I do like is some training, because even in today's session, there was things. Well, I was surprised because even the engineer didn't know a couple of the answers too. So I like the training aspect.
Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Can I just ask, like these meetings, are they mostly through the day, or are they through the evening, or how does that work?
Madam Clerk.
Through your worship to Councillor Pierce, what I have been doing is I've been booking them in advance of another meeting that we're having. So this particular quarter revision sat at 4:30, and that would generally be based on what we expect appeals. So I would push that out earlier and earlier depending on, so probably 3 o'clock on a Tuesday before 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Any other questions? Councillor Chambers has brought up a good point. Listening today to what I heard, I was very impressed and very proud to say that the 3 people on the panel represented the county of Brant. They represented the county of Brant very well. Councillor Chambers, do you want to make a motion that 3 that are sitting now be reappointed? Seeking a seconder. Councillor Pierce, you'll let your name stand. Councillor Garneau, Councillor Coleman, yeah. Councillor Miller? Yep. Let's get them appointed first. All those in favor? And now we need 2 more. Councillor McAlpine and Councillor Pierce. Are there any other volunteers? Seeing none, Councillor Pierce and Councillor McAlpine. We'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Welcome to the board. Thank you. Communications, 11.1. Oh boy, not Councillor Bell.
It's me.
No.
It's me.
Councillor Bell.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Oakley. Whereas in order to be eligible for a special occasion permit from the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, Paris Drinks Fest must be declared a municipally significant event. And whereas Paris Drinks Fest stands to be a municipally significant event in terms of its tourism contribution to the community, that the Paris Drinks Fest scheduled for August 16th and 17th, 2024 at Lions Park be declared a municipally significant event for the purposes of obtaining a special occasion permit. And I would like to say a few things at the right time.
Are there any comments, questions? Councillor Bell, if you'd like to say a few things at the right time.
Thank you. Yeah, my concern, and it was played out last year, we had some interesting weather, which meant that the area in Lions Park where the event was to be conducted became waterlogged and almost impossible to use. It was dried out, but then after the event, it was turned into a quagmire that took that part of the park out for the best part of 2 months. And so somehow or other, we would like to avoid that. So I don't know whether that's the right location for the event. If it is, then we need to have some provision for maintaining the quality and access to Lions Park after the event, which should not be made unavailable to the general population for 2 months thereafter. So I would like to propose an amendment to this motion that staff consider how we can ensure that the Lions Park becomes immediately available and usable after the event.
Seeking a seconder.
Seek seconder.
Councillor McAlpine. Any other discussion? Just a couple of comments. That was a very strange weather event, and we had a mudslide, and we replaced it with turf, and then it looked like it was fine, but it wasn't. It was just turf over a mudslide. And of course, when you had the event, it was chewed up, and it looked as bad as it did before the mudslide. So I don't know that the stars could align like that again, but I think because we didn't know whether the event was going to be canceled or whether it wasn't, because of those things, those conditions, we did start looking at other places, and the people that were putting the event on couldn't find anything else that was suitable. And so I'm glad that we went through that whole exercise with staff to find a second location, and there just wasn't one that worked for the amount of people that had to be channeled down a certain way and obviously managed once they got there. So it is going to be hard for staff to bring back a second location for this event, because we tried to for the last time when we thought we were dealing with a mudslide.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I think events worked against us last year, weather worked against us, but with we're now in February, the event is in August. There's plenty of time to find a different venue that is more amenable to perhaps poor weather when the time comes. It's amenable to better parking. It's amenable to better access. It maintains that the park is open to the general population throughout the period. So yeah. I would encourage staff to do that.
Yeah, so we have a motion, and it's been seconded, and it's just direction for staff to look for other places if there's a better place for the event. Any other questions, Councillor Oakley?
Through the mayor, could I just get the specific language of the amendment? Sorry, Alicia.
My understanding of the amendment is that staff be directed to come up with mechanisms to ensure a good condition of the park following the event and investigate different venues.
Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question and a comment, if I could. First with the comment, yeah, I think last year was absolutely the perfect storm, no pun intended. There was the washouts and stuff like that. I truly believe that issue has been resolved. We'll have almost a year for that, the sod and such to take hold and grow in there. So, if it rained again, could it be muddy? Yeah, sure, it could be muddy, but I don't think it'll be the same as last year, just with what's been done and the time that's passed since it's been done for it to, take some strength, so to speak. My question is, fine and dandy, we can look for another place, but would the folks that are putting this on, would they still run it if it was somewhere else? Like, I'm not sure if there's been discussions with them, if they're saying, no, we want it here, that's it. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I think it would be a shame to lose it if we said, no, you can't have it here, it's got to be somewhere else. Curious.
Yeah. Allison? Oh, Zach has an answer. I just think it's good for the public to also know that the developer paid the bills to make us whole. So it wasn't a drain on the county. Everything that was damaged was paid for by the developer that caused the problem to begin with. Zach?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just based on last year's experience, we did look at multiple locations through the county in the hopes of finding a backup location in the event that Lions Park would have been unusable. None of the locations proposed by staff seemed to quite fit the needs of the event organizer. So, the wish was to, have it at Paris Lions Park, and luckily we were able to work with the contractors to get it prepared. And I can also add that, we are currently talking to the organizer, and, as part of that agreement, the intent is that the park is restored to its kind of original condition after the event.
Okay, I think with all that being said, we still have something on the floor. It's being seconded. It's just a direction to staff to maybe investigate or go into negotiations with the event planners to see if there was a second option. It's just a direction. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now we have to vote on the motion as amended. Councillor Bell had it. Oakley seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolutions, we don't have any. Other business. Councillor Coleman, you had something to say?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. It's regarding planning. And it's regarding the last meeting we had with planning and development. And there seemed to be confusion amongst some delegations that thought they were registered and didn't get registered, didn't get to speak. This is when it come back to council. So I've been talking to Director of Development Services, and I think we need to look at tweaking our meeting again, whether we eliminate having the first meeting and just go right to approval and do it all at once. And then delegations, or if they're upset, can come back at the council meeting and get registered to get on the agenda. I just think that, I know we have to move these planning acts on. We don't want it to go back like we did a few years ago. But I think we can maybe eliminate that first information meeting and do it all at once. And then have, when it comes back, the planning report comes back to council like it did in the past, do it then. I just think it needs to be streamlined and moved on, because there seemed to be an awful lot of confusion from people sitting out in the audience, thought they were going to be able to speak, didn't get to speak and whatnot. The problem is always is, if there's no problem with the report, it goes through tickety-boo. But when there's people upset and they don't like the way they think it could go, and they don't get registered, we have a problem. So hopefully we can do something. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are you making a motion, Councillor Coleman?
Yes, I am.
I need a seconder. Councillor Garneau. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think I understand where Councillor Coleman's going here, but if they don't get registered for the first one, who's to say they're going to be registered for the second one? The information is out there. One would suggest that if it's in the proximity of where they are, or it's something that's important to them, they would understand that it's, whether it's at a planning meeting or a council meeting, they have to register to be a delegation. So I'm trying to understand, I get where you're going, Councillor, but I'm trying to understand how it's going to make any difference of them registering or not registering, whether it's at the planning meeting or at the council meeting.
We'll let Councillor Coleman respond to that.
My take as Mr. Mayor on this is that when you're making that decision, you do not have to register. That's an open public meeting. Our council meeting that we have, we will ratify it, is not open. It's not declared a public meeting. That's my take on it. All I'm saying is make the first meeting an open public meeting. You make the decisions made that night by staff, by council, and then if they don't like it, they have the right to get on the agenda for the next council meeting.
I'm going to defer to the clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Pierce. I believe what Councillor Coleman is referring to is our current two-step process. And so it was recently amended. The first meeting, which includes an information meeting from planning, is the public meeting held under the Planning Act. Therefore, members of the public don't need to register. The chair calls if anybody wants to speak and they come up. The second time when the report comes, but when it comes with a recommendation, it's in the council meeting as opposed to a public planning meeting. Therefore, the Municipal Act and the procedural bylaw govern the rules of that particular meeting. my understanding of what Councillor Coleman is recommending is that possibly staff revisit that process and allow one public meeting with the recommendation at the Planning and Development Committee meeting. Therefore, members of the public seeing the recommendation of staff don't have to register. They can come, they can put up their hand, they can speak. Council would then, or committee in that case, would make a decision, which would go to council at the end of the month in accordance with the old policy. If they do not agree with the decision of committee, they could then register to speak at council. It should be noted that that change, if it's coming, perhaps the recommendation should be a report from staff, just because it would require a procedural bylaw amendment.
Councillor Pierce, you got that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Councillor Oakley, you're next.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to Councillor Coleman, I was going to clarify in regard to whether or not this isn't intended to be a report to come back from staff, or whether or not we're trying to do it here and now. I think that my understanding is that we are looking for a report. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Garneau, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support Councillor Coleman's motion this evening because I think one of the challenges that we started a new process, and once you started a new process, you have to live through it a bit and then reflect on it. And one of the things that became apparent at the last series of planning meetings was that this was our first refusal. Someone left unsatisfied with what they were getting. And when we have our statutory public meeting right now, we don't yet have a staff recommendation, which makes it very difficult for the landowner and their professional representatives to know sort of what their left and right are coming to council. And I know that when someone's dissatisfied with an outcome, the first thing they do is look to the process and decide, was it fair? So I'm supporting staff taking another look at this to make sure that when we have individuals who are dissatisfied, that they aren't in a position to say, well, the process wasn't fair and I didn't get a fair shake before the council, even if I don't like the outcome. So with that in mind, I would like to see this go back to planning staff to just have another look at.
Thanks, Councillor Garneau. Councillor McAlpine.
It's just a small clarification, and I agree with the sentiment, what's being said. It's just that at the planning meeting is an open public meeting, so people can come and speak to it. But I agree that at the following council meeting, which is held the same evening, that's where the change needs to occur, where the proponent for the application has the opportunity to come forward and address it at that point. So it's just a small clarification.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly support a review of the process. I mean, I don't know why it happened, but we went into this new mode because we seemed to be swamped by applications, and almost at the same time we did that, the applications kind of dried up. So the process actually would have had loads of time to be able to do exactly what Councillor Coleman is suggesting, to have delegations that second time around. So a review of the process is timely.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Chambers?
Just the time frames for having things done without having to be appealed for no decision is a factor that we have to really keep in mind because we don't want to keep going to the OMB for lack of decision. That was one of the reasons that we changed. The other thing that I'll make comment on, when you have a public meeting, the members of the public that speak should feel that they can influence the decision. So if the staff has presented a decision or a recommendation, the members of the public will feel that they haven't had the opportunity to influence staff when they make before they make the recommendation. That's why we went to the three meeting system way back when. So let's review it, let's get it right, and the only people that will be unhappy at the end of the day are the people that are refused.
And I think Councillor Garneau is right. It doesn't matter why people leave the building thinking that the process was flawed or they weren't heard, whether it's their mistake or our mistake or time or whatever it was. Once they leave here feeling that they weren't represented properly or that they weren't given a fair shake, that's not a good message to send out the back door. With that being said, it's on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor of sending it back for a report by staff? Thank you. Counselor Miller, you had something.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we know where it has become of our official plan?
I don't even have a drawer anymore, Counselor Miller. If there was a drawer here, I'd look in it to see if it was here. I don't know that any of us have. Do we know?
Through you, the mayor, we're still waiting. It's been almost 8 months.
Counselor Miller.
Just to follow up then, this, I think, it's a 10-year official plan? Or 5? But anyways, when does the clock start ticking on that? Is that when we submit it to the province? Is that when the province has approved it? I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious here, but at some point we're going to have to start thinking about our next official plan. So I'm just...
Through you, the mayor, it's supposed to be under the Planning Act, a 60-day approval period. So we're well above that. We're well over that.
If anybody could find out, because I do have a couple of residents asking about it, right? So, because they have applications in, and if this isn't approved, then things go back to square one. So, okay. Any information you have, please let us know. Thank you.
Yeah, there are many builders waiting too. Everyone's waiting. It really is an unreasonable amount of time now. It's kooky, and it's starting to look like we're putting things off. It's looking like we have some sort of a hidden agenda, and it's just not here. We just haven't heard anything. So, anything else for new business, Councillor Oakley?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if the Horseshoe is comfortable with it, I'd like to move that we refer to staff to come back with a report in regards to tax deferral options and how the provincial program relates to our own policies.
Interesting. Seeking a seconder. Councillor Bell. Discussion. Councillor Oakley, do you want to sort of elaborate on?
Certainly. So I had a conversation with a couple of residents, and then later on, I believe our MPP mentioned at an event I was at. But the province does have some form of property tax forgiveness policy that does apply province-wide. I had a conversation with staff, and City of Toronto has a very well-detailed page on how their policy all works. However, they are under different provincial legislation, so staff requested that I come forward with a motion at some point, which I meant to do earlier, and I'll do now, asking them to come back with a report addressing this to see what options we have for residents who might be being hit hard by our 8.7% increase, and what options they have for deferral or forgiveness or whatnot.
Great. Any questions to Councillor Oakley? Councillor Chambers?
Is that a notice of motion?
Is it a notice of motion?
It was not my intent, no.
Councillor Chambers?
Should be, shouldn't it?
Yes, it should be. Does it need? Yes, okay. Councillor Chambers?
I'll move that we suspend the rules for notice and allow the resolution to be placed.
Thank you. It's on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Kyle, did you want to speak? You're okay? I went pretty quick there. Sorry. I now need a motion to take us in camera. Councillor Garneau?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Miller, that the County of Brant Council convene in camera to discuss labor relations issues, OPSU collective bargaining and service delivery review, matters about an identifiable individual, appointments to the Police Services Board, a position plan or procedure to be applied to negotiations, update on physician recruitment and fundraising campaign for a new community center.
All those in favor? Moving camera, 5-minute recess. Okay, we're back in open session again, which takes us to number 15 on the agenda, which is the bylaws. Councillor McAlpine, you have the bylaws for the first reading.
Okay. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Kyle that bylaws 1224 to 2324 be read the first time.
All those in favor of the first reading of the bylaws? Could read them the second time, please, Councillor McAlpine.
Okay. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Kyle that bylaws 1224 to 2324 be read a second time and all preambles and clauses be adopted.
Are there any questions for the second reading of the bylaws? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed and carried. If you could read them for the third time, please, Councillor McAlpine.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Kyle that bylaws 1324 to 23-24 be read a third time, passed, signed, and executed.
Thank you. All those in favor of the third reading of the bylaws? Opposed and carried. Which takes us to number 16 on the agenda, which is the next meeting slated for March the 12th. Is there anything else for the betterment of the County of Brant? Seeing none, looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Coleman.